Good Friday morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Yasmin Basugian. A lot to get to this morning right now on Morning News Now. A race to evacuate. Thousands in Afghanistan await their opportunity to escape this morning as the United States faces mounting pressure to speed up rescue operations. This as anti-Taliban protests are spreading in Kabul. President Biden expected to speak on the crisis later today. And booster battle on the COVID front. Controversy is brewing in the medical community over the necessity of a third vaccine dose. Some experts now arguing it is too soon to roll out yet another shot. This as 3 sitting senators test positive, all of them breakthrough cases. And trouble on board. Instances of unruly behavior on planes are soaring this year as more and more Americans return to the skies. The FAA reporting record fines for disruptive passengers. How flight attendants are learning to defend themselves at 35,000 feet. And wait for it, Leslie Odom Jr., the Broadway icon who rose to international stardom for his role as Aaron Burr in Hamilton, was like the rest of us sidelined by this pandemic. This entire industry shuttered, much like many American small businesses. We're going to bring you Joe's interview with the legend himself on his latest project, bringing the light back to Main Street. We got a lot ahead this morning. I'm looking forward to seeing your piece as well. Not sit down. It must have been fascinating.
It was great chatting with him, especially with Broadway kind of coming back here in the next few weeks.
Coming back in a very different way, though, as many places are right about now. Good morning, everybody. We're going to begin our show today in Afghanistan and the frantic evacuation effort at Kabul airport.
The White House says 9,000 people have now been evacuated since August 14th, but tens of thousands of Americans and Afghans who worked with U.S. forces are still stranded in the country. The pace of evacuations is being affected by the ongoing chaos outside the airport, where hundreds of Afghans face Taliban checkpoints amid reports of violence. Pentagon spokesman John Kirby addressed those concerns, speaking with reporters yesterday.
We have seen reports of the Taliban harassing and physically so some Afghans that were trying to move to the airport. We are in constant communication with them, as my answer to Courtney indicated, to make sure that they have the same visibility on the people that we want to see get through as we do.
A UN threat assessment report seen by several news organizations says the Taliban is stepping up efforts to find people who work with U.S. and NATO forces, even going door to door to look for them. The report says the group has a priority list of people that it wants to arrest and is threatening to kill or apprehend family members if they don't give themselves up. Our team of correspondents, Ali Aruzzi, Monica Alba, and Julia Ainsley are all standing by to bring us more on this story. Let's kick things off with Ali, who is in Tehran, and Monica at the White House. So, Ali, evacuations are continuing out of Kabul airport today. We mentioned the number now up to 9,000 evacuated amid all that chaos. What is the latest on the ground there?
Hey, Joe, that's right. The evacuation plans from Kabul airport are being stepped up day by day by the U.S. military. As you mentioned, 9,000 people have been evacuated in the last 6 days. But there's still thousands of Americans and Afghans that work with Americans and other allied countries that are stranded. Now, for foreigners, it's slightly easier to get to the airport and out of the country still, but it's still a perilous journey. We got reports this morning that a German civilian sustained gunshot wounds on the way to the airport. He's now been flown out of the country and his injuries are apparently not life-threatening. But it really just does underscore how chaotic and dangerous the situation on the ground is there for foreign nationals, let alone Afghans trying to flee the Taliban. There have been heartbreaking images of families, including elderly and disabled family members and children, trying to get to the airport but being whipped back and beaten by Taliban fighters. So it's still a chaotic, devastating scene in and around and across the country.
A lot of questions about how we got here, Monica. A source has told NBC News that diplomats urged the State Department to begin evacuations a month earlier. So tell us, what warnings did they give? What was the government's response?
24 diplomats, Joe, based at the U.S. Embassy in Kabul, did send what's known as this dissent cable, an internal memo to the Secretary of State, expressing concern, really, about how quickly the Taliban could potentially take over the country. This is something we're learning about from a source familiar who describes the cable, even though NBC News has not seen it for ourselves. who says really and emphasizes this is an important way for those within the State Department ranks to express their opinions without fear of retribution. It's anonymous, and usually it's a way for diplomats to say, even though this is the policy the United States is pursuing, we disagree, and here are the reasons why. The date of that is most notable, July 13th, as the president was announcing this drawdown. And we do have a comment from the State Department spokesperson who says this kind of dissent is important to contribute to the conversation. But as we know, the drawdown was going to continue as planned and as directed by the president. Joe.
Ali, earlier this week, the Taliban said it would not seek revenge against those who helped U.S. and NATO forces. Now, this UN report we mentioned is warning the group is literally going door to door hunting for people who are on a list. What's going on here?
That's right. According to this United Nations report, the Taliban are going house to house, door to door, searching for opponents and their families, which is, of course, deepening fears that Afghanistan's new rulers are planning revenge. After rooting out government forces and taking over Kabul, they promised that they wouldn't go after these people. They put together this kind of very well-crafted PR blitz saying that there's going to be all-inclusive, but people that know the Taliban knew that they are not people to be trusted. So now there's a real fear of revenge, and not only once they find these people that had worked for foreign forces, for NATO, as translators, the fear is that they will be tortured, they will be abducted, and they may be killed. There were already a report that the Taliban had gone searching for a journalist who worked for the TV station Deutsche Welle in Germany. They couldn't find him, but they found a family member of his, which they killed, and injured another one. That journalist was able to escape to Germany.
So, Monica, I mean, President Biden, we know, is set to speak again about Afghanistan later on this morning. While we know pulling troops out of Afghanistan was largely a politically popular move, he has faced a lot of criticism in recent days over what's happening, how this is unfolding. What do we think we can expect to hear from him today?
White House officials say, Joe, that he's essentially going to repeat the argument he made a couple of days ago, which is that he stands by his decision. He has no regrets, but he is deeply saddened and troubled by the scenes unfolding at the airport earlier this week. And that is why he directed the Pentagon to send in more troops and to try to get that situation at least under control. The president expected to also talk about why he feels this was the right time to do all of this. And we got a preview of that in that ABC interview he did just yesterday and the day before, where he said essentially there was going to be no way to get out of Afghanistan, quote, without chaos ensuing. So I think you can expect him to defend that. In addition to providing these more technical updates, we haven't been getting as much from the White House. They've been coming from the Pentagon and from the State Department, but the White House wanting to get out today, put the president out before he leaves for Wilmington for a part 2 or part 3, depending on how you count it, of a summer vacation that obviously was mostly a working one up until this point, given the crisis in Afghanistan.
All right, Monica, Ali, thank you so much for your reporting this morning. Appreciate it.
So as we mentioned earlier, among those Afghans desperate to leave are those who worked with the United States forces during the war, and some are still in touch with their former friends and colleagues. One interpreter, Najib Rahimi, has been in contact with former Army Captain Jeff Trammell. NBC News Justice correspondent Julia Ainsley has been following this for us. Julia, good morning to you. Great to see you. You actually spoke with Rahimi, who is stranded at the airport with his family right now. Tell us about what he's going through.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I was able to do a video chat with Rahimi and his family while they're just in the throngs of this crowd. There's gunfire firing overhead. In fact, that same gunfire is one that started a stampede just 2 days ago and then again last night, hurting his 2 daughters. He has 3 daughters, 2 are twins, 6 years old. Those were hurt in the stampede. And as he's been afraid, he's been turning to Trammell for advice. Rahimi tells me he has all of the documents. He has documents to show that he was an interpreter for 2 years with U.S. forces going to provinces around Afghanistan. He has references from people in the U.S. military about his services. He has a pending visa application that's been pending for 7 months with no word. He's not someone who just now applied. All of these documents are in his hand, but until he can get through one of those gates at the airport, no one can even review those documents. And so it's really frustrating for him. He's in the throngs throngs of this crowd, and he's very worried about the safety of his family. And he says he cannot follow President Biden's advice to go shelter in place because he has no more home to go back to. The Taliban will target him there.
Right, where is he supposed to shelter in place? What type of advice is he getting from his friend Trammell in his communications? And has he literally not heard from any kind of U.S. government official as to how and when he and his family, his young kids, could get out?
He has not heard from any U.S. government official on what to do. His really only connection to the U.S. is through Trammell, his friend who he worked with in Afghanistan. And Trammell is giving him a lot of advice on, I heard maybe the East Gate might work. Now try the North Gate. He's running around to these different gates outside of the airport. And I've been in touch with Trammell, and Trammell was able to share with me screenshots of their conversations. And in addition to those logistics, there's just an incredible story of friendship here. As Trammell is telling Rahimi to stay brave, telling Rahimi that he's the bravest interpreter he knew in Afghanistan and that he can get through this. Even when the gunfire starts, when the stampedes start, he is telling him to stay strong just as he stayed strong for him during those times in Afghanistan.
I just can't even imagine, Julia, what these families are going through right now as they await some type of exit out of Afghanistan right now, knowing their lives are in danger. Talk me through these pending visa applications that you talk about. Rahimi is not the only family who is in this situation.
That's right. There are thousands in this situation, and the State Department has said that they are prioritized. And as Monica mentioned, there have been many Afghans who have those pending applications, who have been fortunate enough to be flown out and taken to the United States. From there, then they have to go through the process of actually obtaining that visa to be able to stay in the U.S. But the vetting on the Afghan side, when they're still in Afghanistan, is still very intense for many reasons. Of course, we want to make sure that these are people who are not national security risk. But right now, I'm told that there is just such a backlog that the State Department is not able to keep up with this. And my colleague Josh Letterman today said that the people in the intelligence community warned the Biden administration that they needed to start this process a month earlier. And right now, we're still seeing them unable to keep up with this surge in demand.
All right, Julie Ainsley Forrest, thanks so much for your reporting on this. Appreciate it.
An hours-long standoff near the U.S. Capitol came to a peaceful conclusion yesterday with a North Carolina man taken into custody after police say he made a bomb threat. Authorities say the suspect parked his black pickup truck in front of the Library of Congress, claimed to have a bomb. Capitol Police say when they later searched the truck, they found possible bomb-making materials but no visible explosives. Before his arrest, the suspect live-streamed videos from inside his truck, broadcasting anti-government messages until Facebook deactivated his account. As a precaution, authorities evacuated the library, Supreme Court, a House office building, and the offices of the Republican National Committee.
We had information and evidence of what was in the bed of his truck, and there were some things that were concerning, but ultimately we were able to take him in custody without incident.
The suspect is identified as 49-year-old Floyd Ray Roseberry. Police successfully convinced him to surrender after 5 hours. This incident, of course, comes more than 7 months after the January 6th insurrection on Capitol Hill.
Let's talk COVID now. 3 fully vaccinated U.S. senators have tested positive for the coronavirus all on the same day. They are Democratic Senator John Hickenlooper, Independent Senator Angus King, and Republican Senator Roger Wicker. All 3 took tests after experiencing symptoms. All 3 announced positive results as of yesterday. Because they are fully vaccinated, they are expected not to experience more serious symptoms. The Senate is in recess this week. Many members are in home states, either preparing for 2022 elections or checking in with their district offices. These are just the latest in a string of prominent breakthrough cases amongst lawmakers. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and Texas Governor Greg Abbott both recently tested positive after being vaccinated.
For the first time in over a month, more than 1 million COVID vaccine doses were administered in the U.S. in a single day. The White House says it is the highest number in nearly 7 weeks. More than half of the doses were people getting their first shot. Vaccinations are picking up as the Delta variant moves through the country and more employers are issuing vaccine mandates. But that's not the case everywhere. In Mississippi, cases are reaching levels higher than any other time in the pandemic. Just over a third of the state right now is fully vaccinated. And just yesterday, Mississippi's Governor reiterated he will not issue a mask mandate. But with the Delta variant raging in this state and more kids getting sick, people who held out on getting the vaccine are now starting to come around. NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber joins us now from the University of Mississippi Medical Center in Jackson. So, Ellison, first of all, Mississippi is one of the lowest vaccination rates nationwide. We've known that for weeks now. What is the latest on cases and hospitalizations? Are the unvaccinated still the ones really driving case numbers there?
Yes, to the last question, the unvaccinated are by and large the bulk of cases and hospitalizations and deaths. I mean, when you look at the numbers, it's over 97% last check of COVID cases being among the unvaccinated. 90, 89%, give or take, of hospitalized cases of COVID-19. That is among the unvaccinated. Look, the situation in this state is catastrophic, and there really is no other way to put it. There are over 1,600 Mississippians hospitalized because of COVID-19. Right now, this state is leading the world in COVID cases per capita. This state has less than 10 ICU beds available, but close to 100 people waiting for those ICU beds. In Jackson, on this hospital campus, they have opened 2 field hospitals in less than a week. And that's not just for show. They are using them. We watched as they brought patients into the newest field hospital, a field hospital that is designed and set up for COVID patients needing critical care. When you look at the vaccination rates here, it is obvious that this is a state that is a largely unvaccinated population. Less than 40% of people here are fully vaccinated. In the last couple of weeks, the number of doses being administered week by week, they've increased about 120%. So that is really significant in a state where vaccination rates are so low. But given how low they're starting, they really have a long way to go. And it's going to take quite a while for hospitals to see any sort of benefit of that if those higher rates of doses being administered actually hold moving forward. Right now, what we keep hearing from hospitals, what we keep hearing from health officials is that they are at the worst moment they have ever been at right now. And hospitals, I mean, they are sort of crumbling under the weight of all of these COVID cases. Joe?
Now, listen, I know you've been speaking with families. You spoke with the mother of a 17-year-old who's now home from the hospital after battling COVID. Now they are getting the vaccine. How's her son? What did she tell you about their decision to finally get the shot?
Yeah, I mean, Keelan is just 17. He was in the ICU at this children's hospital. He's a healthy kid, an active kid, not someone who on paper you would think would wind up in the hospital if he got sick. But that is exactly what happened. As you said, he is unvaccinated. That's something that he, his mom, his siblings, they're all completely reassessing now. Listen to what his mom told us about what happened to him.
I should have done it sooner, a lot sooner. And I'm just thankful that the end result was not something heartbreaking because it took me so long to make a decision.
Did you ever think when he was in the hospital or when he was at home that Keelan might not make it?
Yes, of course I did. He was having a lot of problems with breathing, and I cried a lot of nights while he was in ICU, and I prayed out to God to just keep him.
So Keelan was the first person to contract COVID-19 in his household. He brought it home, and it spread to his mom, his sibling, his 1-year-old nephew. The only person in their household who did not get sick was an uncle who was also the only person fully vaccinated. So now the entire family is planning to get vaccinated. You heard his mom say there, it wasn't necessarily something she says that they were against. They just were debating it, had some concerns, and hadn't really gotten around to doing it. But it is a decision, a delay that really almost cost her son. Joe?
Glad to see that her son, though, is doing better. Ellison, thanks so much for sharing their story and for all your reporting. We appreciate it.
All right, NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar is joining us now. Dr. Azar, thanks for joining us on this. We really appreciate it. You're hearing Ellison there in her reporting. You got field hospitals now sprouting up. You have at capacity ICUs, kids continuing to get sick, having to be in the ICU. I think a lot of folks are basically asking the question of when is this wave going to end, right? Dr. Fauci having somewhat of an answer to that. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
We've seen in the UK that after several weeks of a high acceleration, it's turned around there's a lot we can do about it, and to ensure that it not only continues to accelerate, but it really goes down to a very low level. And that's the thing we've been talking about all the time. And that is, we have 90 million people in this country who are eligible to be vaccinated who have not yet gotten vaccinated.
So you talked about that 90 million people that aren't yet vaccinated, right? It seems as if it's picking up a little bit, but nonetheless, that is a large group of people that have not been vaccinated in this country. Taking a look at what happened in the UK, looking at what happened in the Delta variant in India as well. What is your assessment as to when this current wave we're dealing with in this country is going to slow?
Honestly, not anytime soon. I mean, if you listen to the experts and you do the math on how transmissible the Delta variant is, it's infecting, 5 to 9 people are infected by every one person who's infected with Delta, which is vastly higher than the original strain. In fact, the Delta variant is ripping through this country, which is half vaccinated, much faster than the original strain went through an entire unvaccinated country. And I think that's because the concept here is that if you are vaccinated as an individual, you are very well protected. But at the community level, we really are not. The virus, this strain, is going to go to those geographic pockets of unvaccinated people. These people are socially connected. We're going to see that until, yes, of course, vaccination is going to help. But we know that takes time. But vaccination alone is not the answer. We're pulling back on all of the other mitigation strategies at the same time that we're trying to vaccinate is not the right thing to do. It's not the UK outbreak and the India they didn't magically go away.
Right.
The Delta variant basically found everyone it could infect, and when it ran out of people to infect, that's when case numbers started to go down, unfortunately.
So let's talk about a possible solution here, which is this third booster shot. Right now, you have some scientists essentially saying this third booster shot is premature. The science is not yet there. The data is not yet there. But yet you have folks that are immunocompromised already getting. I have folks in my family already getting the booster shot. The president saying by the end of September, all Americans will be able to get that third booster shot. Where are you on this? Is the data there?
Well, I have to tell you, it was shocking to go from Friday and trying to put all the pieces in place together for our patients who fell into that immunocompromised category to go to sleep on Monday night. And the last thing I saw on Twitter before I closed my eyes was that suddenly everyone would be eligible for a booster in September. Blew me away. When I listened to the rationale, I can understand why they made the recommendation. I think purely from looking at the Israeli data as sort of a lens into the future, where their data clearly showed that there was a waning and diminution in the effectiveness of the Pfizer vaccine, because they use that pretty much exclusively the longer out from vaccination an individual was. So that means people January, February vaccinated versus in April, they saw the protection against severe disease went down to 55%. The data we have here in the country right now is fantastic. The protection against mild to moderate disease has gone down. Okay, but it seems to have sustained its effectiveness in terms of severe hospitalization and disease and death. But I think they're really looking toward the future, and they're saying this is probably inevitable. And we want to be prepared for that inevitability so that come that 8-month mark, mid-September, late September, we want to have the FDA approval on board. We want the CDC to be on board to make that recommendation. It's not, it hasn't been signed yet. Okay. It's not inked yet. This is just the plan. But I certainly understand from a standpoint just today in time that experts would say that the current evidence does not support that decision today. But I think that we all might be saying something very different a month from now, Yasmin.
Got it. Dr. Natalie Azar, thank you as always for your clarity on this. Appreciate it. All right, so California is still battling record-breaking wildfires. North Carolina dealing with major flooding from Tropical Storm Fred. Want to get a check at the latest on the extreme weather across the country, including Tropical Storm Henri. That could pose a big threat to New England this weekend.
Bill Cairns is here with more. Bill, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Our fears are going to come true. We are going to see a hurricane into a highly populated area of southern New England for the first time in 30 years. I mean, come Monday morning, I would be shocked and surprised if we don't have millions of people without power and a lot of damage in southern New England. So let's get into it now. We are watching a hurricane watch that has been issued from Long Island all the way to Cape Cod. For some areas of Long Island, this is the first hurricane watch since Irene in 2011, some 3,000 days. So it's been a while since this area has seen something like this. So let me get you the latest stats and statistics. 65-mile-per-hour winds. So it's not a hurricane yet. We do think it will likely become a hurricane tomorrow during the day. It'll be safely off the North Carolina coast. So everyone in the southeast, the Carolinas, the mid-Atlantic, you are fine. But then the storm heads up into southern New England as we go throughout the day on Sunday. Let me zoom in a little closer to give you a little, what towns and what areas will be hardest hit. The red line shows the current center line. This shifts. Yesterday it was over Nantucket. Now it's over Providence and over Rhode Island. So it still can shift in the next 48 hours. That's why we have that white line. That's the cone of uncertainty, which now goes all the way to Islip into areas of Connecticut and even up into Maine. A storm will weaken as it goes northward. So we may get a landfall as a hurricane. It may be a tropical storm, but regardless, we do expect significant impacts. How certain are we where it's going? That black line is the forecast from the Hurricane Center. All the other lines are our computer models. Some of them are in the Long Island, some of them are in the Cape Cod. So we're not etched in stone exactly where it's going. But what we do know is we will have a significant storm surge to the right of the center, 3 to 5 feet at least. And then on top of this, guys, we'll have obviously winds that could gust up to 80 to 90 miles per hour. The leaves are on the trees in New England that hasn't been hit by a hurricane in a long time. There's going to be extensive power outages. And today is one of the, you have 2 days to prepare. You have today and you have Saturday. Sunday is going to be too late.
Never a good forecast outlook when we get news like that, Bill. I know you'll be watching it for us. Thank you, my friend. Coming up, everybody, a spike in unruly passengers in the skies is now prompting change on board. How flight attendants are learning to defend themselves. That's coming up next. Welcome back. So far this year, unruly airline passengers have racked up more than $1 million in fines for bad behavior in an effort to protect themselves against violent passengers. More flight attendants, they're taking a voluntary self-defense training course. NBC News correspondent Tom Costello has the story.
At an air marshal training center in Chicago, up close and personal self-defense tactics.
Again, the strike, there's a clavicle, there's a temple, there's a nose.
A dozen flight attendants here on their own time as the FAA reports nearly 3,900 cases of unruly behavior on board passenger planes just this year. Passengers attacking crew members, often drinking or angry about mask mandates. One flight attendant even losing 2 teeth after being punched. The FAA now detailing dozens of cases. Passengers fined up to $45,000 each under a zero-tolerance policy, with total fines already surpassing $1 million.
Every single day when flight attendants are putting on their uniforms, they're saying, is this the day that somebody punches me in the face?
The voluntary self-defense training suspended during the pandemic, now in high demand. Flight attendants don't sign up to get into a job for a fist fight, but if it becomes physical, they're being told, don't be timid.
If they are going after myself or anybody on the plane, it's you or me, right? So I'm going to protect myself.
If I'm a passenger and I'm coming at you with a fist,
You're going to block, right? And sometimes it's going to be a very quick block, glancing blow.
what have they taught you that you didn't know before?
Yeah. So hands in self-defense, just as this. Step, pivot, bring it back, turn. Making sure you bring their hands back into your face. Protect yourself.
Defending against a new reality in the skies. Tom Costello, NBC News, Chicago.
All right, let's look at what's making news around the world this morning. Claudio Lavanga joins us now from Rome. Good morning, Claudio.
Morning, Yasmin. Well, China will formally allow couples to have up to 3 children starting from today, when lawmakers in China decided to revise that very strict child control law that until 2016 allowed couples to have only 1 child and until today only 2 children. Well, from now on they can have 3. And Syria's state media reported that there were some Israeli airstrikes in and around the city of Damascus last night. It also reports that there were 5 loud explosions heard by residents that shook apartment buildings there. And last but not least, well, the Pope on Wednesday appeared to have a blast, or a ball rather, as he was playing a song. Let me just get this taxi through. He was having a ball as he was playing, his pictures playing at a foosball table that he was gifted. Somebody gave it to him. He's a very well-known soccer fan, and that would be the second time, or the last time, that a hand of God has anything to do with soccer after his fellow Argentinian Maradona played that famous goal against England in 1986. And unless you are a very knowledgeable soccer fan, you will have no idea what I just said.
Nope, don't know what you just said, but do love a picture of a Pope
I'll explain it later.
Thank you. Please explain later. Appreciate it. Great to see you, Claudio. Thank you.
All right.
Coming up, everybody, the NHL's first openly gay player. Our interview with Luke Prokop, now living his truth on the ice. Coming up next. Welcome back, everybody. You heard of Tesla. Now meet Tesla Bot. Elon Musk has announced that Tesla is going to start making humanoid robots. That's a little nerve-wracking, I got to say. They will be able to grab your groceries or do other, quote, dangerous, repetitive, boring tasks. Tesla Bot will be a 125-pound, 5'8" robot, and we'll show the technology found in Tesla vehicles. Speaking at a presentation, Musk emphasized that the robot will not be dangerous and that humans could, quote, most likely overpower it. Well, that's not very confident. The goal is for a prototype to be ready sometime next year. I guess we'll look forward to that. So for the first time in professional hockey history, a player has come out publicly as gay. The NHL's Luke Prokop is contracted, to start with the Nashville Predators this season after his revelation. He now says he is no longer scared to hide who he is. Here's NBC News correspondent Kate Snow.
Last year, the Nashville Predators selected Luke Prokop in the NHL draft.
Prokop, he scores!
The 19-year-old defenseman plays in Calgary for now, but out on the ice, he was keeping a secret.
I mean, I had been dealing with this for probably 3 or 4 years where I truly knew who I was and I was hiding myself.
This spring, he came out to his sister, then other family. This summer, he told the world on Instagram.
I'm no longer scared to hide who I am. Today, I'm proud to publicly tell everyone that I'm gay. I got to a point where I just didn't really care about what anyone else would think. I wanted to live my life the way I wanted to and not hide from anything.
The NHL hockey has a reputation. Testosterone filled, right? Fighting.
Center it through, they score!
Do you worry about whether they'll accept you?
I think nowadays hockey in that sense has changed. My generation, everyone that I've told, I haven't had a bad reaction yet.
Prokop says living openly will make him a better player.
I can go to the gym, I can go to the rink, and don't have to care about what anyone else thinks. Don't have to wonder if anyone is, questioning, who I am. I can just be me.
He's at development camp in Nashville now, and next year, old enough to be called up to join the Predators. Kate Snow, NBC News.
Kate for that. Coming up, everybody, what sort of role does income play in who gets the vaccine and who doesn't? We're going to explain that coming up next. So who is getting vaccinated and who is not? This is a lingering question. We know politics does, in fact, play a factor, but there's another issue impacting whether people get the shot. NBC News Now correspondent Simone Boyce shows us the role that income is playing in the country's vaccination rate.
86% of Democrats have received at least one shot of a vaccine, compared to only 45% of Republicans.
Red states with low vaccination rates are driving up the national surge.
We often lean on the divide between red and blue to explain why so many Americans are still unvaccinated. And while it's true, there is a strong correlation between political ideology and vaccine status, the whole picture isn't so black and white. Let's take a look at income. The latest data from the Census Bureau suggests there's a real relationship between income and vaccination status. The lower the income, the more unvaccinated. Nearly 73% of unvaccinated respondents who reported their finances have household incomes of less than $75,000. While those folks make up only about 54% of the population. Data from the Kaiser Foundation also show a similar pattern, with 44% of unvaccinated respondents in their survey making less than $40,000 a year. So what's behind these numbers?
When we focus on what are the reasons people don't want to get it, we sometimes are missing what are the reasons that people haven't been able to get it yet.
While hesitancy plays a role, something seemingly straightforward like transportation to a clinic or even having enough tech savvy to schedule an appointment online can prevent someone with limited time and resources from getting the vaccine.
So lower income workers are less likely to say that they get time off of work to get the vaccine or to recover from side effects. We also found that a large number of people who don't have health insurance have not gotten the vaccine. People are concerned about having to pay an out-of-pocket cost. So even though we know the vaccine is available for free to anyone who wants it.
And if it's a matter of removing roadblocks, there are actionable steps that can really make a difference.
There are things that employers can do. So first off, giving workers paid time off to get the vaccine and to recover from side effects, but also employers that encourage vaccination. We found that that is really effective in getting more workers vaccinated.
Another strategy is flipping the model. So instead of taking people to the vaccine, bringing the vaccine to the people.
So we took a political campaign, election campaign model of reaching out to folks to see if they were vaccinated, and if they were interested, we could get them set up.
Since March, GotVax's grassroots operation vaccinated over 7,000 people in low-income communities of color in the Boston area.
What we did was set up pop-up clinics right in their communities, so it's close by. At times, folks weren't working, so often it was Saturdays, Sundays. We experimented with evening clinics, early morning clinics, trying to get whatever time folks were available.
So at the end of the day, for many people who are just trying to stay afloat right now, it's not just about convincing them to get the vaccine. It's also about making it easier.
It's time for corn dogs, thrill rides, and concerts. The Kentucky State Fair returns this weekend and is welcoming guests in person for the first time since 2019. Of course, with the Delta variant surging, the fair will take place with strict COVID protocols, including mandatory masks indoors. David S. Beck is the president and CEO of Kentucky Venues. He joins us now to talk more about this. David, good morning. So first of all, just walk us through a few of the main COVID protocols that are new this year. What do people need to know?
Well, our facility normally pre-COVID would have well over 600,000 people attend our 11-day fair. We have over 300 acres outdoors, a lot of activity, as well as 1.2 million square feet of indoor. So we have a different protocol for each of the facilities. Outdoors, of course, masks are not required, but many people choose to wear them. On the indoor, as you enter the property, masks are required. So we're making announcements. We're reminding people we have signage even before the gates when they enter our properties, and of course at the doors as they go into the buildings. So that's one of the things that we're doing. We've increased sanitation, cleanliness. We modified the operating hours to allow our people to provide complete wipe downs and cleaning. We do have our GBAC accreditation that we're certified to deal with infectious diseases and proper protocols in place for sanitation. And therefore, we're going to maintain that and continue to make everybody safe as they should be.
You know, it's one thing to have a mask mandate. It's another thing to try and enforce it. I know the governor said yesterday he didn't see enough enforcement, he thought, on that. How hard is it to try and enforce something like that? What are the biggest challenges to try and actually say, no, you really do have to wear a mask indoors?
Well, there are exemptions that exist, and that's a challenge. It's a lot of understanding the individual's preference. We encourage everybody to have their mask with them and continue to remind people from state employees. All employees are required, no question about that. But those guests coming in, they may have some qualifications for the exemptions, and that becomes an honesty issue with those individuals.
Give us a sense of what the state fair means to people in Kentucky. You didn't have it for a year. How important is it to have it back?
It's very important. Probably close to $18 million economic impact. We have 120 counties in Kentucky. 2 years prior to COVID, we had representatives of each of those counties, and we hope that continues to be the opportunity. The young people you see on your screen, they show their livestock, the leadership experiences, the business impact, all the various vendors. We have 11 nights of concerts that are free to the public for just their general mission. We have about 75 different events each day. We have about 500 vendors, over 60 food vendors on the property. So this is big business for those individuals that participate and enjoy the activities.
No doubt they've been waiting a while for it. All right, David, thank you so much. Appreciate you taking a little time this morning to talk with us.
Appreciate you.
As parents prepare to send their kids back to school, many are finding supplies more expensive than ever.
A recent Lending Tree survey found parents are spending nearly $500 on average for back-to-school supplies, and a third of them actually expecting to go into debt over it. Matt Schultz, chief credit analyst at Lending Tree, is joining us now. Good morning, Matt. Great to see you this morning. This is some pretty troubling stuff here. Help us understand what exactly parents are facing in sending their kids back to school.
What parents are really facing is, besides just inflation, which is obviously a big deal, but there's also just so much uncertainty. In most years pre-COVID, you knew exactly what you were getting into. You knew that you just needed backpacks and lunchboxes and pens and paper. But now you just don't really know. So you have to kind of prepare for both the on-campus side of things and the remote side of things. So that includes things like office supplies, like office chairs and desks and printers and laptops and things like that. So it's really no surprise that we're seeing the cost that people are expecting to spend rise pretty strongly.
So do you have any tips for parents who are trying to save money and trying to just minimize that financial stress of back-to-school shopping?
Really, one of the most important things is just to prioritize those expenses. If you have a budget, you may as well go ahead and build a little bit of extra money into that back-to-school shopping, because if you have that budget and you can shift some numbers around in advance before you go and spend, it's a lot easier to reduce that stress than it is to kind of figure out where the numbers can match up after you've already spent the money. And also things like credit card rewards, cash back, that sort of thing can help extend your budget too.
Let's stick with credit cards for just a moment, because it's likely that if parents are actually going into debt, it's because they're using their credit card. So if in fact you are one of those parents that has to rely on a credit card, how do you avoid going into too much debt?
Well, rewards can really help you. If you know that you've already decided to spend some money on back-to-school shopping and you've already saved a lot of that money up, if you get a new credit card, you can use that money that you've already saved to pay for that money. And you can use that credit card to make that purchase instead and go ahead and pay it off with that money you saved. For example, the Amazon Prime Visa card gives you a $100 gift certificate to Amazon immediately after you've successfully applied. So that $100 can really extend that budget.
All right, some helpful advice there. Didn't know about that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
All right, time for our CNBC Money Minute, the biggest financial headlines of the day and why they matter to you.
CNBC's Christina Partsinevelos joins us this morning. Hey, Christina.
Good morning. Happy Friday. I guess I'll start with Apple because they're reportedly delaying their return to office plans until at least January due to a surge in COVID cases. In an internal memo, the company says it will give employees a month's notice before they have to come back. And keep in mind, in June, CEO Tim Cook said Apple would test this hybrid model so people could work in the office 3 days a week and then the rest at home. And this was supposed to start early September, but we know that date was then moved to at least October and now the new year. Twitter is making several tweaks to direct messages set to roll out in the coming weeks. You'll be able to share the same tweet with up to 20 different accounts separately, which Twitter says could lead to fewer accidental group chats. It is also adding a quick scroll button on the mobile app so you can jump to the most recent message when looking through posts. Twitter has also cleaned up timestamps by group messaging also by date. I had no idea that Twitter even had group messaging, so you learn new things every day. And Facebook is testing Reels, Instagram's version of TikTok videos, in the newsfeed on the main Facebook app, as well as in groups. So if you're enrolled in the test, you'll see clips appear in those sections just on the top of the page. In addition to watching Reels on the platform, you can record them directly from the Facebook app. The company says the test is in response to the growing interest in the short video format. There's a lot of things for us to keep ourselves busy with, especially trying to edit these videos. I haven't done that yet. I don't know about you guys, like the TikTok and now.
Oh, no, I can't even go down the road of editing those videos and getting involved in TikTok. I do have to say, though, I cannot stand group messaging because once you're a part of it, it just keeps coming.
Are you talking about Twitter or just in general?
Just in general.
I agree.
Let's not specify which social account I'm actually talking about. But if you're thinking of involving me in your group message, don't do it.
But it's also awkward when you leave because then it says so-and-so left the group chat.
Exactly. Exactly.
No offense, but bye. All right.
Thank you, Christina. Good to see you. Coming up, everybody, the resiliency of America's small businesses.
Yeah, we're going to have a conversation with Hamilton's Leslie Odom Jr. about that coming up. Stay with us.
So with the end of summer rapidly approaching, sad, people are heading to the beach for the last few weeks of the season. But a recent spike in shark sightings on the East Coast has a lot of beachgoers nervous and some beaches even closing. NBC News correspondent Carrie Sanders joins us now from Florida. Good morning, Carrie.
Yeah, good morning. A beautiful morning here, but we see those warnings going up. The flags are up, mostly concentrated from New York up into Maine, but it certainly can be frightening. At the same time, though, marine biologists say these increased shark sightings are a hopeful sign for the health of the oceans. From New York to Maine, the eastern seaboard teeming with sharks lately.
There have been 26 confirmed shark sightings so far this year here in Nassau County.
You saw a fin swimming for at least 2 to 3 seconds forward. You could not mistake it.
Lifeguards extra vigilant, trying to keep swimmers safe with those purple and white warning flags, now a much more common sight.
It's scary. I mean, I would really not go in the water at all.
There have been more than 30 shark attacks so far this year. Most recently, a young girl was bitten in Maryland. On the island of Nantucket off the coast of Cape Cod, multiple beaches closed this week after sharks were sighted as close as 15 feet from shore.
I'm glad that they have the patrols in the water now.
Ocean explorer Chris Fisher says all of this is actually a good thing. His team conducting shark research off the coast of New England.
There's a lot more fish in the ocean now off the east coast of the United States than there was when our great-grandparents were alive. So with that, people talk about the increase in shark sightings, but for some reason they don't connect it to, wow, look at how much more bait there is.
Bait like these giant schools of bunker fish that sharks love to eat. Fisher says conservation efforts that started in the late 1980s have helped the ocean and its ecosystem come back from the brink.
What's really going on in the big picture is we're turning the East Coast back into one of the great wild oceans.
Even close encounters with great whites like this, Fisher says, are positive since the large shark populations dwindled to about 9% after the movie Jaws. Long Island native and marine expert Chris Paparo.
Often it's thought to be a scary thing, like there's a problem. And actually, this isn't a problem. It's an inconvenience for some, but a healthy ecosystem has sharks.
And as we see folks here enjoying the morning just on the pier doing a little fishing, stop and think about us. We like to go out, enjoy the warm weather. Well, there are many species of sharks that like to do the same thing. And so biologists say we see climate change impacting the warm waters, and they're rising, especially up in the New England area, in New York. In fact, a Connecticut state study shows that in Long Island City, or in Long Island Sound, the waters there have been the warmest they've been in 29 years. Yasmin?
Wow. Carrie Sanders for us. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Small businesses are a fixture in pretty much every community, but many were pummeled by the pandemic, and not equally. From February to April of 2020, more minority-owned small businesses closed compared to those owned by white people. And for the ones that stayed afloat, well, it wasn't easy. Now Wells Fargo is sharing their stories with the help of a special Tony-winning guest. Who is it? You'll just have to wait for it. Actor and Broadway star Leslie Odom Jr. may have a 1 in a million voice, but like the rest of us, his life was upended by the pandemic.
Last March, I was in the same boat as everybody else, and my calendar was wiped clean, and we had a little bit of savings like some people do, but it doesn't last forever. So we didn't know what was going to happen. My business shut down. Broadway's been dark for so long, it's just coming back now. TV and film was down. The curtains didn't just close on Broadway. Many businesses were also forced to shut their doors. But Odom says a little light always shines in times of darkness. These moments really do bring out the best in us. They bring out the best in our neighbors and our family members and our coworkers and our banks. People really rise to the occasion. Looking to rise to the occasion himself, he's teaming up with Wells Fargo to present a summer film series called We Made a Way. The short films profile a diverse group of small business owners who serve their communities, highlighting their resilience through the pandemic. Tell me why you wanted to be involved with this. Wells Fargo showed me 4 really touching films that were super impactful. And the very first one they showed me, they didn't even know, but it was this small business where I grew up. To see them meant a lot. I love the initiative. I know how difficult it's been for small businesses at this unprecedented time. I know firsthand. My sister's a small business owner. My father-in-law owns his own business. Some of the businesses profiled in the videos, they reflect so many of the businesses out there that even though they were going through their own challenges, were finding ways to sort of help others, feed people in the community who needed it, feed first responders. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? I don't wish for tough times, but they come for all of us. You remembered who helped you get through what you went through. You remember the people that gave you a call, that gave you a helping hand, that gave you a listening ear. Despite all the challenges of the pandemic, Odom has found plenty of reasons to celebrate as of late. He scored an Emmy nomination for the film version of Hamilton and 2 Oscar nominations for his role as Sam Cooke and his song in the movie One Night in Miami. I was just trying to hold space for those 2 contradictory realities, that it was a tough time and there was still wonderful stuff happening. And after a year and a half off the stage, Odom is looking forward to more wonderful times ahead as Broadway reopens. Now you're going back on tour again. I mean, what does that mean to you? It means so much to be able to see people face to face and get the band back together. Means more than I can say. In addition to his touring, he says he's just excited to be an audience member in a Broadway show. That's what he's really looking forward to.
It's interesting. Just this week, I was thinking, gosh, it'd be nice to go to a Broadway show in a couple of weeks to kind of take advantage of getting back. But it's going to be a much different way of viewing Broadway than it ever has been before. Nonetheless, though, happy that they're able to get back to work and we're able to get back to watching all of these talented actors on stage. So that was a great piece. Thank you, Joe, for that.
No problem. Good to have it. And that does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
The news continues right now.